I was a world-class jewelry designer, yet my fiancée treated me like a mere placeholder for someone else. She even handed my hard work over to a plagiarist just to get on his good side. I eventually reported her and made a massive comeback. And when she showed up at my wedding begging for another chance, I simply showed her my majority share certificate. On the day of our engagement party, my fiancée, Ava, left me standing there alone to finish the ceremony by myself. While I was at the venue, I saw a trending post on Twitter showing her making a grand, romantic confession to her first love who had just returned to the country. Ever since that man, Ethan, came back, he had been parachuted in as my direct superior. He didn't just steal my spot at the elite jewelry industry summit. He even rigged the national design competition, so the championship that belonged to me went to him instead. When I went to Ava for an explanation, she just looked at me with annoyance and told me to stop making a scene. She even laughed and asked me how I could possibly compare myself to Ethan. That was the final straw, so I called off the wedding right then and there and walked out. I immediately jumped ship to our frenemies firm and worked my way up to becoming a titan in the jewelry world. Eventually, Ava realized her mistake and came crawling back. She stood there clutching a massive diamond ring, sobbing uncontrollably as she begged me to take her back and marry her. I just pulled Hannah close by her waist and casually tossed my company equity papers onto the table. I looked at Ava with pure mockery and asked her what she could possibly offer that would compare to Hannah. An hour before the engagement party was set to begin, I was sitting quietly at the vanity getting my hair done. My phone screen was still lit up, displaying the iMessage thread Ethan had sent me. It was a stinging photo accompanied by several provocative texts. In the picture, he was wearing a perfectly tailored navy blue suit while intimately holding Ava by the waist. They were leaning into each other, looking like a match made in heaven. He told me that since my engagement was today, he might consider letting her go back to finish the ceremony if I begged him. My eyes were glued to the cuffs of his suit where a brilliant green diamond was set into a deep blue cufflink. That was a gift I had personally crafted for my fiancée to celebrate our 6th anniversary. Right then, the stylist who had been on the phone walked over with an awkward expression to apologize. She told me that Ava had already picked up her gown the day before. I listened to her words in a daze, and before I could even process it, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from Ethan saying that Ava had complimented how much better the clothes looked on him than they ever did on me. I started calling Ava's number frantically, but after dozens of unanswered attempts, I slammed the phone onto the vanity. I took a deep breath to suppress the rage boiling inside me. The stylist asked tentatively what we should do next, and I coldly asked to borrow her phone. When I called from an unknown number, she picked up in less than 10 seconds. I didn't even have the energy to yell at her, so I just asked her where she was. She used that same dismissive tone she always had, claiming she was away on a business trip and that I could handle the ceremony alone. I could hardly believe what I was hearing when she suggested I go through our engagement ceremony by myself. She dodged the subject by saying things were complicated and promised to bring me a gift when she returned. Then I heard a man's voice in the background, and she hung up immediately. My throat felt tight, as if someone were choking me, and my heart slowly sank into a sea of disappointment. In the end, I forced myself to walk through the entire engagement process alone. I had to face the confused and mocking stares of our friends and family. People were whispering about how pathetic I was for putting on a one-man show. As I walked down the long red carpet, my phone buzzed with a message saying, "Here is your engagement gift." Suddenly, the massive LED screen behind me switched to a live broadcast. The entire room gasped, and I whipped my head around to see the woman who was supposed to be at this engagement party. She was standing on a street in London, holding a vibrant bouquet of purple irises. The livestream title called it a real-life fairy tale about a wealthy heiress proposing in the streets of London. I watched her walk toward the man and drop to one knee without a moment of hesitation. She looked so devoted as she handed him the flowers, as if she were offering up her entire heart. The comments on the screen were exploding with people calling them a perfect match and begging them to get married. People were screaming about how sweet it was and calling them a match made in heaven. I watched the entire farce with a blank expression, feeling like an intruder in their beautiful love story. Ava eventually returned to the country with the man she adored and threw a 3-day party at an upscale club. I only found out about it because of the massive charges showing up on my credit card statement. Ava hadn't bothered to tell me, and the wealthy socialites in her circle had never respected me anyway. I overheard them talking about how disgusting it was to see me acting like a desperate lapdog. They joked that I was just a thick-skinned loser who only got close to her because I happened to look a bit like Ethan. They wondered why Ava hadn't grown tired of her little plaything yet. They couldn't believe she actually went through with the engagement party. My hand froze on the door handle as I heard a man's voice ask if she actually intended to marry me. The room went quiet for a moment before Ava's familiar, lazy voice said she was just playing around with me. Ethan acted hurt, reminding her that she had promised to wait for him when he went abroad. She comforted him by saying she had never actually loved me. I couldn't take it anymore and kicked the door open, bringing the rowdy room to a dead silence. It was so quiet that you could have heard a pin drop on the floor. The smile on Ava's face vanished and was replaced by a flash of panic when she saw me. I forced a stiff smile and apologized for interrupting their fun. I ignored the people trying to smooth things over and walked straight up to Ava to demand an explanation. I asked her if she skipped our engagement party just to kneel for him in the street. Ava looked at me with irritation and told me to stop being unreasonable and go home. I didn't back down and told her that no one was leaving until I got an answer. Ethan stepped in to play the peacemaker, claiming they were just ordinary friends and that I was overreacting. He told me that Ava was a good person and that I should trust her more. I didn't even look at him, keeping my eyes fixed on Ava as I asked if kneeling in the street was normal for friends. Ava snapped at me to stop listening to gossip and told me I looked like a brainwashed, bitter housewife. I told her she was the one with something to hide. Ethan tried to hand me a glass of water to calm me down, but his tone was purely provocative. I accidentally knocked the glass over, and the scalding water splashed onto Ethan's arm and my own hand. I gasped as the burning pain hit me. Ava immediately grabbed Ethan's arm with a look of pure heartbreak that felt like a knife in my chest. When she looked at me, her eyes were cold as ice as she demanded that I apologize to him. I clutched my burned hand, shaking with a rage that left me speechless. The socialites around us started chiming in, telling me that I needed to get over my jealousy. I took a deep breath and apologized before landing a heavy punch right on Ethan's face. He looked stunned as his head snapped to the side from the impact. I showed him my own burned hand and told him that he was the one who burned me first. I didn't look at Ava. I just stared at Ethan's swelling face and told him that the punch was just the interest on what he owed me. I told him he could have her since I was done with her. I looked at Ethan's hateful eyes and Ava's pale face one last time before walking out of the room. I grew up in a tiny, rural town in the South, spending my days tending cattle and farming corn. I had never even seen the world outside those mountains until I got into high school with the highest scores in the city. A man named Mr. Sterling found me and brought me to New York as a scholarship student. I moved to New York and became a sponsored student under the Sterling family. That was where I first met Ava, who was already a graceful and elegant young woman. She was so beautiful that I couldn't take my eyes off her, and she became the center of my entire world. At first, I was just a little follower who carried her water and towels during gym class. I was always there in the background while she played volleyball. I spent 3 years helping her hide her secret crushes from her parents. I even did all her homework when she skipped class to go to concerts. Her friends mocked me for being a pathetic simp, but I didn't care because I wanted to repay the Sterling family for their kindness. It had nothing to do with my pride. I fell hopelessly in love with her on a summer night 12 years ago during her birthday party. Her wealthy friends lied to me and said she was drunk and needed to see me right away. It was after 11 at night, and I couldn't find a cab, so I ran over 10 miles on foot to get to her. When I arrived, someone joked that she had fallen into the pool. I jumped in without thinking and struggled in the water until I was exhausted. It was actually Ava who pulled me out of the pool. She beat up the guy who played the prank and told everyone that I was under her protection. She warned them that they would have to answer to her if they ever messed with me again. After that night, I cherished every moment with her and started hoping for a future together. The night before we submitted our college applications, we sat under the stars while the wind blew through the grass. She whispered in my ear and asked if I knew her dream school. I immediately said Columbia because she had been talking about it for years. She told me that any university with me would be just as good. We both ended up at NYU, which had always been my first choice. Those words became the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. We both got into NYU and started our journey together. I chose to major in jewelry design because the Sterling family had been in that business for generations. Top designers were always in high demand, and I wanted to be one of them. I worked myself to the bone, practicing my sketches and entering every competition I could find. I filled Ava's room with my trophies and promised her that I would design the best jewelry for her family and take care of her forever. Ava just smiled and gave me a gentle kiss that tasted like mint. It was a perfect moment during the transition from spring to summer. Before the summer truly began, I finished my first real piece, which was a pair of unique rose rings. I planned to use them to officially propose to her as a symbol of our commitment. However, I walked in on her and Ethan kissing passionately in front of my trophy case. They were so lost in each other that they didn't even notice me. Ethan was a wealthy heir from a prominent family who wore nothing but high-end luxury brands. People call me a cheap knockoff just because I had eyes that looked like his. Even though I was there for her, she cried her heart out when he left for school abroad. I stayed with her at the airport all night and held her while she sobbed. I told myself that I could wait for her to finally move on from him. I was willing to wait as long as it took. I moved out of her shared apartment and blocked her number. The last thing she sent me was a threat that I would eventually come crawling back to her. The next day, I saw Ethan at the office and realized what she meant. He was introduced as the new creative director who had just returned from studying abroad. The meeting room went silent as everyone looked at me, knowing I'd been the top candidate for that position. I was the one everyone expected to get the job. I had been leading the team for months, but I forced myself to stay calm. I gave him a simple welcome to keep things professional. Everyone seemed to relax after I spoke and gave a light round of applause. Ethan smiled and asked if someone could help him clean his office while looking directly at me. He looked right at me with a fake look of sincerity in his eyes. If I didn't know better, I would have thought he was just asking a colleague for a simple favor. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh at his audacity. My assistant, Joel, stepped in to help him so I could focus on my work. The vice president ended the meeting quickly to avoid more tension. I didn't confront Ava, but she had successfully made me the center of office gossip. At lunch, I could hear everyone whispering about whether Ava and I had officially broken up. They were all talking about how I had been stood up at my own engagement party. Some people said it was my own fault for trying to climb the social ladder. They mocked me for being a poor guy trying to marry into a wealthy family. My phone buzzed with a message from Ava telling me to move back in, and she would give me whatever I wanted. I looked up and caught her just as she was putting her phone away. I looked away and told Joel I had to leave immediately. I walked out of the cafeteria without looking back at her. Ethan asked her what was wrong when he saw her looking away. Ava looked angry and told him that she had decided to agree to his suggestion from the day before. Ava and I were in a total stalemate, and Ethan began rejecting every single one of my design drafts. He had already sent my work back 6 times for no real reason. He asked me what was wrong with my work and claimed that the rose elements we agreed on didn't fit the theme. He was just making excuses to reject my designs. He pulled rank on me and told me that he was the one in charge. He slammed the designs against my chest and threatened to report me for being lazy if I didn't change them. I took a deep breath to control my anger and turned to leave. I heard him telling Ava that my work performance was poor and that she should talk to me. He claimed that my stubbornness was going to ruin the entire department schedule. His voice was so fake it made me sick, and I could see my colleagues trying to avoid looking at me. I went back to my office and slammed the designs onto my desk. Joel brought me some water and told me not to let someone like Ethan get to me. I drank the water and tried to calm my racing heart. I thanked him and asked if the approval for the exchange program had gone through yet. There was a major collaboration project with a top French firm called Cartier, and I was a huge fan of their lead designer, Alan. I had been looking forward to this opportunity for a long time. Joel looked nervous and couldn't give me a straight answer. My heart sank as I checked the system and saw the word rejected in bright red. I called the vice president, and he was shocked because the spot was supposed to be mine. I was confused and didn't know what to say. He told me that the CEO had personally given the spot to someone else during the morning meeting. I hung up and rushed straight to Ava's office. I couldn't believe she had forgotten her promise to me. She knew how hard I had worked for this opportunity and how many nights I had stayed up to earn it. She was always playing games and acting like she was superior to everyone. I pushed open her office door and saw her and Ethan in a compromising position. Ava pushed Ethan away quickly and looked panicked. Ethan pretended to be embarrassed and told us he would leave us alone to talk. He walked past me and gave me a mocking smile, telling me he would see me at dinner. He looked back at Ava with a triumphant grin. Ava nodded to him and then turned to me with a frown. She snapped at me for not knocking before entering her office. I asked if I was interrupting them, and she told me to stop being paranoid. She claimed that nothing was going on between her and Ethan. I demanded to know why she gave my spot to Ethan, and she claimed it was because my work performance had been poor lately. She didn't even care how I found out. I asked if she really gave my spot away just because of that. She told me it didn't matter who won as long as the company was represented and told me to stop being so petty. I yelled at her about how many nights I had worked and how many terrible projects I had taken on just to earn that spot. I was completely devastated by her betrayal. Ava didn't care at all and told me that nothing I did would matter unless I apologized to her. She wanted me to submit to her authority. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white. She told me that she wanted me to see how much I relied on her by taking everything away. She told me to come back to her and she would forget everything. I stepped back and told her that I earned everything I had with my own hard work. I told her I never wanted her money or status. I made it clear that I wouldn't stay in the same company as Ethan. Ava laughed and told me that Ethan was better than me in every way. She asked me how I could even think I was on his level. Her words felt like a dagger to the heart. She told me she wouldn't completely abandon me because of our 6 years together. 6 years was a long time to realize who she really was. The pain in my chest spread through my entire body as I realized it was over. I calmly told her I was quitting and walked out. I went to a bar and drank until I couldn't feel anything anymore. A woman with a soft voice asked if the seat was taken. I could smell her light perfume as she sat down near me. I looked up and saw Hannah Montgomery, the daughter of my former company's biggest rival. I never expected to see her there. I remembered her from a product launch in Los Angeles the year before. My design had completely outperformed hers and taken all the attention. She had been so angry that she came to find me herself. I had to fill in as a model that day because someone didn't show up. I stood under the lights wearing a purple sunflower pendant that I had designed. Everyone was praising the work, and some people even started bidding on it. I didn't tell anyone I was the designer to avoid any drama. Suddenly, someone stepped in front of me while the crowd was cheering. She looked at the pendant and then looked directly into my eyes. I realized she wasn't interested in the jewelry. She was looking at me. I felt my face getting hot and looked away awkwardly. She smiled and told me that the Sterling family finally knew what a real treasure was. She said there was something more precious than jewelry in the room, which confused everyone. Then she did something that shocked the entire crowd. She handed me a business card and offered me a massive salary to come work for her family. She told me her door was always open for me. After that, everyone was gossiping that she wanted to hire me as her personal model. They said she was willing to pay anything to get me. I knew she was just trying to steal me away from the Sterling family. I turned her down immediately without thinking twice. Hannah never told anyone who I was and didn't bother me again. I was relieved and changed back into my own clothes before Ava saw me. Ava never found out that I was the model that day. I was surprised to see Hannah again and gave her a polite greeting. She didn't care about small talk and asked me if it was true that I lost my promotion. She seemed to know everything that was going on. I asked her if she was just there to mock me. She ignored me and offered to double whatever the Sterling family was paying me. I told her to leave because I wasn't interested in talking. She just smiled and mentioned the National Jewelry Design Competition coming up next month. I told her I was going to win that competition on my own. She whispered in my ear and asked if I was really sure about that. Her question stayed in my head and made me think about everything I had lost. I thought about the promotion and the exchange program that Ava had taken away from me. The Sterling Group was one of the main sponsors of the competition. I kept drinking until I finally blacked out. I woke up in a strange room the next morning. I opened the door and saw Hannah standing right there. She looked away quickly and her face turned red. I started to worry that something might have happened between us while I was drunk. I checked my clothes and saw they were still on. She tried to tell me nothing happened, but she looked so guilty that I knew something must have gone down. I felt awkward, but just thanked her and said I was leaving. She looked relieved and offered to give me a ride. I needed to go to the office to get my things, so she drove me there. She started to say something to me, but then stopped. I pulled her back when a bike almost hit her. Suddenly, I remembered what happened the night before. I remembered falling toward her while I was drunk and accidentally burying my face in her chest. It was incredibly embarrassing. I stood there feeling like an idiot until I heard someone shouting at us. It was Ava, and she looked furious. I let go of Hannah and saw Ava standing there. She accused me of ignoring her calls to spend the night with her rival. Ava looked like a mess with messy hair and dark circles under her eyes. I felt a strange sense of satisfaction seeing her so upset. Hannah grabbed my arm and asked Ava if she had a problem with us being together. She looked completely unbothered by Ava's anger. Ava was speechless as she watched us. I leaned into Hannah and asked Ava if she thought every man in the world was supposed to belong to her. I put my arm around Hannah and told her let's go get breakfast. Ava was so angry that she refused to sign my resignation papers. I didn't care and just took my things home to start working on my own designs. I decided to enter the national competition as an independent designer to prove what I could do. Hannah was the only person I talked to while I was working. It was strange because we were supposed to be rivals, but we actually agreed on almost everything when it came to design. We talked about art and music for hours while I worked. When I finally finished my design, she was the first person I wanted to tell. She looked like a painting sitting there in her white dress looking at my work. She was so beautiful that I didn't want to move and ruin the moment. She sighed and finally asked me if I knew why she wanted to hire me so badly. I told her I had always been curious about that. She told me the answer was from 6 years ago at NYU. I remember that old art studio where we used to work. I realized she was the girl with the mushroom haircut from college. I couldn't believe it was her after all these years. I used to work in that old studio late at night during my junior year. Eventually, someone else started showing up there to work too. We fought over the space for a while before agreeing to each take half. We never spoke to each other. We just worked in silence for weeks. She told me that was a hard time for her and that seeing my passion gave her hope. She said she had known who I was since her first year. She remembered me announcing my dream to be a designer at a club meeting. She said she was impressed by my talent even back then. She saw me win a competition and heard me talk about my dreams again. She told me she always wondered what it would be like to work with me. She asked me what was wrong when she saw me crying. I didn't even realize I was crying until she said something. I felt completely overwhelmed and started sobbing. All the pain I had been holding in finally came out. She put her hand on my head and let me lean on her shoulder. She told me that I was talented enough to succeed and that she would help me with everything else. I thanked her through my tears. I worked hard for the next month and made it to the finals of the competition. The finals were held at a massive convention center in New York. The place was packed with famous designers and industry experts. All the designs were displayed in beautiful cases for everyone to see. Just having my work shown, there was a huge honor for me. I walked over to the most popular display and was shocked by what I saw. I couldn't believe my eyes as I stared at the jewelry inside the case. Hannah asked me if that was my design because it was called Moonlight. She remembered that I had submitted something different for the finals. I turned pale and ran through the crowd to find the person responsible. I was so angry I couldn't even think straight. I found Ethan in the crowd and threw a glass of red wine right in his face. I didn't care who was watching. I screamed at him for stealing my designs and asked him how he could be so shameless. Everyone was staring at us, but I didn't care. He had used my original draft without changing a single thing. He tried to act innocent and asked me what I was talking about while he wiped the wine off his face. He claimed he didn't know what I was talking about and accused me of being jealous of his past with Ava. He acted like I was the one attacking him for no reason. I grabbed his arm and tried to drag him to the judges to settle this. I told him to stop lying and face the consequences. He struggled to get away from me, and Ava ran over to push me off of him. She screamed at me to stop bullying him. I told her she was just protecting a thief, but she didn't care. She told me to stop being unreasonable and asked why I wouldn't just believe her. She claimed Ethan would never steal anything and told me to look at my own faults instead. I felt like the whole world was spinning around me. I realized I didn't even know these people anymore. The woman I loved for 10 years had destroyed everything I believed in over the last few months. A staff member came over to see what was happening, and Ava lied and said it was just a misunderstanding. She didn't want any trouble for Ethan. The staff member told us the ceremony would start at 7. I wanted to say something else, but Hannah stopped me and told me to wait. Ava looked at me and Hannah with a dark expression. She told me to meet her at our old spot after the event was over. Our old spot was under the big tree at the NYU campus across the street. It was where we used to meet all the time when we were dating. I looked out the window at the purple flowers and thought about their meaning. They represented waiting for love and despair, which felt very fitting. Hannah whispered that I should stop holding on to someone who didn't love me. She told me to look at the people who were actually there for me. The host announced the winner of the competition as Ethan for his design called Moonlight. I felt like I'd been hit by lightning when I heard his name. Hannah stood up and announced that she was reporting the competition for fraud. She ignored everyone trying to stop her and kept speaking. She accused Ava of bribing the judges and rigging the entire competition. The scandal blew up in the news, and the Sterling Group's stocks started crashing immediately. I gave the judges proof that Ethan had stolen my work. The competition was shut down, and the entire committee was investigated for corruption. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from reporters, and people even found out where I lived. I had to go back to my hometown to get away from all the drama. I was shocked when Ava showed up at my door the next day. She looked terrible and was clearly suffering from all the bad press. I told her I couldn't believe she had let things get this bad. She begged me to come back to the company and told me that they had already fired Ethan. The old me would have forgiven her, but now I just thought she was being ridiculous. I told her to stop acting and just tell me what she wanted. She took my hand and asked me to help the company by doing a press conference. She told me I owed it to her family for everything they had done for me. I agreed to do it without any hesitation. She was surprised, but I told her that unlike her, I actually kept my promises. She didn't get angry and just said she would send a car for me later. Then she asked me if I would still marry her after everything was settled. I asked her what she meant, and she told me she saw the note on the back of my design. She realized that I had designed it specifically for our wedding day. She said she finally understood how much I loved her and promised to never speak to Ethan again. She told me she would only love me from now on. I gave her a cold smile and told her I wanted a massive wedding and a honeymoon in Bali. I even told her I wanted a custom suit from Alan. She hugged me and promised to make it all happen. I did the press conference and said just enough to help her family as a final favor. Everyone was talking about our upcoming wedding, but on the big day, I went to Hannah's estate in France instead. I was dressed casually and didn't look like a groom at all. Hannah asked me if I was playing games with her by showing up at her house. I just smiled and handed her a document, asking if I could stay with her for a while. She told me I could stay forever and handed me a stack of papers as a gift. She was always so direct about what she wanted. I was shocked to see that she had already prepared everything for me, including shares in her company and a new house. I couldn't believe how much she was willing to give me. She joked about being greedy, and I told her she was perfect because she had both money and beauty. She told me I could have whatever I wanted from her. Meanwhile, the news that Ava had been stood up at her own wedding was all over the internet. It was the top trending topic on Twitter that day. Ava waited for me in her wedding dress for an entire day, but I never showed up. I didn't turn my phone back on until I returned to the country with Hannah a month later. I deleted all the messages and calls without even looking at them. I went to my new job at the Montgomery Group first, and then went back to my apartment, where someone suddenly grabbed me. Ava was there looking like a mess and tried to force herself on me. She pushed me onto the sofa and wouldn't let me go. I asked her if she was crazy and tried to push her off. She looked completely broken and nothing like the powerful woman she used to be. She kept saying I belonged to her and tried to kiss me. I bit her lip hard to get her away from me and could taste the blood in my mouth. I told her to stop acting so pathetic. Suddenly, someone pushed her off of me and threw a blanket over her. Hannah was standing there looking at her with total disgust. She told Ava she had never seen anyone so desperate and shameless. Ava realized how bad she looked and started sobbing into her hands. I sat down in front of her, but didn't say anything for a long time. She asked me if I was really done with her. I told her that she was finally feeling exactly how she had made me feel for years. She apologized through her tears, but I told her it didn't matter anymore. I had stopped caring about her a long time ago. She begged me not to treat her this way, but I just looked away. I told her that her affection was worthless now that it was too late. Hannah pulled me close and told Ava to leave. She threatened to call the police if Ava didn't get out of my apartment immediately. Ava looked at Hannah with pure hatred before turning back to me. She told me she would wait for me just like I used to wait for her. She said she knew I stood her up on purpose to teach her a lesson. She claimed she was glad to finally understand the pain she had caused me. She told me she would be my backup and that she would always be there for me. She even claimed that the Moonlight design was a symbol of our love. Our new collection at the Montgomery Group was a massive success and became the top seller of the season. Meanwhile, the Sterling Group was failing because of the bribery scandal. Their new designs didn't even make the top 50 list. I was now the creative director at the Montgomery Group, and everyone was calling me the new star of the industry. My reputation was growing every day. During an interview, Hannah surprised everyone by announcing that we were getting married next month and invited the media to the wedding. I was shocked by her announcement, but she just winked at me. The next day, our wedding was the biggest news story in the country. I was actually excited about this wedding, unlike the last one. After weeks of planning, I finally stood under the lights in my custom suit feeling like a new man. I was surprised to see two women standing there when the ceremony started. Ava had somehow snuck into the wedding and was standing right there. Everyone in the crowd started whispering and wondering what was going on. Hannah didn't even look upset. She just stood there with her arms crossed like she was enjoying the drama. Ava told me she finally realized she couldn't live without me. She reminded me that I only became a designer because of her and that she still had all my trophies. She talked about all the memories we shared and how well I knew her. She said she couldn't imagine a future without me by her side. She pulled out a massive diamond ring and started crying. She begged me to come back to her and marry her instead. I laughed and showed her the stock market report for the Montgomery Group on my phone. Her face went blank when she saw how successful we had become. I pulled Hannah close and looked at Ava with total contempt. I asked her how she could ever think she was on the same level as Hannah. I didn't even look at Ava again as I took Hannah's hand. We walked toward the center of the stage together to start our new life. I knew my future was finally going to be bright. As the story concludes, James leads Hannah toward the center of the stage. He had spent 12 years loving one woman, only to finally say goodbye by walking away from their wedding. He didn't try to rebuild on the ruins of his past. He simply moved on to a new life. True victory isn't found in revenge. It comes from letting your own talent shine. Some people are just flawed designs, so cut your losses and go create your own masterpiece.